Welcome to Dungeon Mastering is Easy. This is the show that shows that anyone can be a dungeon master. Hello, my name is Vahid. I am the host of the show. It's great to have you with us. And look who we've got back with us, second time back. This is Robert Hartley GM. How you doing, Rob?
Hello, I'm still great, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Rob is the dungeon master for the massively popular YouTube Dungeons & Dragons show, Viva La Dirt League D&D, and has done how many episodes are you up to? Do you know?
Well, in the sort of flagship campaign, we did 250 episodes in the entire campaign, and then we've just started the next campaign, Into the Darklands, and I think there's going to be about 40 to 50 episodes of that, but we're currently airing up to about 10 or so at the time of recording.
Wonderful. And as well as the YouTube work, Rob has his own Twitch channel, Robert Hartley GM, where he does a whole bunch of really fun, engaging D&D content, world building. Rob reads, we're reading rule books and discussing rules, through to chat-driven actual play. So,
yeah. Fun
having back with us, Rob.
Fun to be back. Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to look at an interesting theme which really kind of leans into your history and training and acting. We're going to be looking at how to create voices for characters.
I chose this topic to talk about because I actually have a panel that I submit to conventions when I go that's about how to create voices for characters, especially for non-voice actors. I am a voice actor. I have a background in acting, and through my drama school, we did learn voice acting techniques and things, and I think that has given me a really good stead for how to create voices, because unfortunately, a lot of people think accent when they think voice.
Yeah.
And these are not the same thing. You do not have to be good at doing accent work in order to be good at doing voice work. You can, like, that accent is just one aspect, one ingredient in your pantry, essentially. So there's so much to a voice and what makes a voice interesting in an NPC that's not just accents. And so, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. Where would you like to start?
Well, I think actually before we go into the specific tips, I think that just the point that you've already made is really important. This idea, many of us have come into playing Dungeons and Dragons from watching shows, and many of those shows, there's we can all think of one very notable one,
yeah,
which is the entire cast are professional voice actors, and so a lot of people have this assumption that to play Dungeons & Dragons, you need to have a voice and possibly an accent, and the Dungeon Master needs to have accents and voices. Do you know, this wasn't a thing at all when I first started playing D&D. So it's a beautiful thing that's come in, but sometimes it puts a bit of weight of expectation to perform on a Dungeon Master, which is perhaps unfair sometimes.
So why don't you give me a random character, like just a class, race, species, background, that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what we've got a wood elf, druid, and the wood elf druid is classic forest loner.
Forest loner, hermit sort of guy. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, how do I make this a character? If I wanted to go accent work, if I feel confident with accents, I would think, what sort of accents do I use for elves in this world? As the Dungeon Master, I've got my own homebrewed world, and I tend to base certain languages, fantasy languages, on real world languages, just to give myself some consistency feeling to it. So like elves are based on Welsh. And so I might give myself a bit of a hint of a Welsh accent if I was doing it in my world. But even without accent work, I would think, okay, loner means that he doesn't really speak much to other people. He speaks to animals a lot, so maybe his vocabulary isn't that great. So maybe I immediately just start giving him small words and talking with words that aren't too big. And maybe I pace it down a bit so that he has to talk in a way that makes people think he has to really think about what words he's choosing before he speaks them.
Awesome.
So it's, and then maybe I think elf, something to make him elf. Maybe I make it a little bit lighter, a little bit more, the word is aspirant, more breath to your voice. So you allow a little bit more breath to come through the vocals. And so now I'm speaking with this softer voice that's a little bit more staccato. That means like broken up, a little bit more pauses, and in words that aren't too big. maybe I want to give him like the often sort of stereotypical kind of what's the word, like looking down on people, condescending kind of attitude that it often comes with elves. So maybe I want to give him some sort of nasal element to this accent, to this voice. And so even without an accent, now I'm speaking with some condescension, nasal quality. I've got a breathiness. Lastly, if maybe I want to decide, is this elf male, female, androgynous? Are they young? Are they old? And so maybe that is going to affect the pitch, or what is called the laryngeal height, which is like the height of your vocal cords, like your Adam's apple. If you pull it right down, you get this deep quality.
Low, yes.
And you push it right up and you get this sort of squeaky, gobbling kind of quality.
And that's not related to your pitch, because I can have this deep quality, but still speak quite a high pitch. Quite a high-pitched thing, but with a deep quality.
And vice versa, I can speak with a low pitch, but in this squeaky kind of quality.
So maybe you want to add some of that in, and
suddenly you've got this sort of squeaky, high larynx, nasal quality. You've got this staccato delivery, and he really thinks about the words he uses because he doesn't speak all that often.
And just like that, you've got a very unique voice. You've thought about a few different qualities that aren't anything to do with accent, and it's all inspired from what character you're playing.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. You know, the speed of delivery is, and the where you pitch it and things is, you can do so much with just a few little tweaks.
Yeah, so there's they're called vocal qualities, and there are a lot of them, and I also found some incredible channels. Like there's a I think a TikTok channel that does all about vocal quality, and he spends just like, a 1 minute TikTok video on talking about each individual one, like how much growl you put in your voice, how much constriction, so whether you're speaking with this sort of constricted voice, and growl is this kind of you can use it to accentuate words by putting a little of that in. There's the aspirant that I talked about, which is the breathiness of it. Often gives you like an angelic quality. Yes. You've got what's known as glottal fry, which is this kind of stoner voice where
Valley Girls.
Valley Girls, or like stoners, where the vocal cords are literally just not getting much energy, so they're like vibrating in a way that gives that kind of bumpy kind of texture to it. You've got your how fast you're speaking, how stressed this person feels. Like, are they a real fast talker or not? You've got the vocabulary, what sort of like long words, big words.
Yes.
Are they using big words but using them incorrectly? Are they using a lot of malapropisms? That's fun as well, because it indicates something about their intelligence or their education, or like their need to feel like they're more intelligent than they are. There's a whole bunch of things we can put into this that doesn't require you being good at accents.
So then a couple of questions I have related to this. Okay, so first of all, brilliant. You think of what's the character's kind of place in the story, and then you figure out, okay, how is the voice going to support that, right? How is the voice going to reinforce the role that this character is playing in the story and accentuate it? Okay. How do you remember the voices?
Yes, brilliant question. Often for me, it's a symbol. Like if I'm playing the king, I think of a crown, or I think of myself sitting in a throne at the end of a massive, ballroom or something.
Fascinating.
A throne room, and it suddenly puts me in that quality.
Yes.
All of those qualities come into my body without me even thinking about it. Suddenly, I'm lowering that larynx to give myself more resonance, which often comes with more authority. I'm also deepening the voice a little more with the pitch. I'm considering a little more pauses in it to consider that other people are going to listen to me, regardless of how long I take, because I'm authoritative. All of that just arrives in the body. Sometimes it's like a symbol of something I think of. Other times it's a physicality. One of my first characters that I ever played at, I think around the time I was starting DMing, maybe one way or another. He was a soldier background human barbarian, and he had a broken. He'd been in a lot of fights. He'd had his nose broken, he'd had his jaw broken, and so whenever I played him, I just tipped my jaw off to the side.
Yeah, and you're there.
And just that simple physicality. I've just got him. I've just remembered Herman.
Yeah.
He's just like this, and this was Herman. Herman, human barbarian, would do anything for his friends, and it just comes because suddenly I've put myself in that physicality. Lounge back in your chair, and you're suddenly you're that relaxed rogue who just knows he's better than everybody in the room, and he's got that arrogance because of your body language and how you're choosing to sit at the table.
It's interesting that you talk about that physicality. I read an interesting kind of interview with Harrison Ford, who said putting the hat on of Indiana Jones transported him to becoming Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Right. There's something so primal connection between the wardrobe and the character that when he put that hat on, he became Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it really is. It's a majorly important thing for an actor is to be able to put that costume on, take it off again at the end as well, because a lot of actors can struggle with taking the character home with them, like not being able to, especially if you're playing someone horrible or someone who's got like really awful morals or whatever. It's really important at the end of the day to do like a bit of an actor's process of like literally take this off, consciously think about the fact that this is a character that is outside of you now. This is a thing that you leave in the costume room and you'll put it on again tomorrow. And so, the hat can definitely be a thing. You can have a similar thing for yourself with a D&D game. You've got a bracelet or a scarf or something that you put on, certain rings that you wear that you can like fiddle with that helps you remember that you're like nobility and you've got all this jewelry on. Yeah. Whatever it takes to give yourself that quality that then translates through to the voice. Yeah. Another thing, when I'm not doing Dungeons and Dragons stuff, I work in the TV world, and I've worked on a number of cartoons. And when recording voices for cartoons, one of the things I noticed that one of the voice actors she did is she had a key phrase that she would say, a key phrase, and that would, whenever she said it, it was always in the voice, and she used that to unlock the voice for the rest of the character, and then she was in it. She just needed to say the key phrase, and then she was in. Yeah, I've always called them on-ramps myself. So a lot of my on-ramps for accent work is just the name of the country, like Scotland. If I say Scotland, suddenly Scotland puts me in the Scottish accent. For Irish, it's diddly-dee potatoes. If I say diddly-dee, then suddenly I remember what Irish is and how it sounds, and I'm in. Like I call them on-ramps of like things that help you to remind, a little phrase that helps you to remind your body, like the physicality of what you're doing with your vocal cords and your face and where you're putting the tongue. It all just slips back into place again. Yeah, that's really cool. Now, for a dungeon master, are there times when you choose not to do a voice for a character, and times when you decide this NPC is important enough that I want them to have an identifiable voice? Like, do you distinguish between them? Do you give voices for everyone? What do you do around that? It can be a good indication to your players, even a subconscious one, of who is important to pay attention to, who do they need to take note of. You should write this guy's name down because Rob's gone to an effort of describing him in detail and talking about how he entered the room before he even starts to speak. And then when he starts to speak, it's clearly a voice that Rob's practiced, versus you've just decided you want to go to a shop. So Rob says, there's someone in there tending shop, when he hasn't even described gender, race, age of this person. He hasn't given them a thing. And then when he talks, he goes, hey up, love, what do you want? What can I get for you? And Rob's just put on some accent and, that's it. Like, it's a good indication to go, this is not someone that Rob's thought about and is going to be necessary to the story. Not to say that they won't become necessary to the story if the players decide to invest a lot of time in them. Yeah. But at that point, I will then have to take a note of, what did I make this person sound like? Next time you meet them, try and get the same voice. Is the difference between the person being an extra? Yes, and being someone with lines. This person is an extra, a featured extra, they call them in the movie industry, where it's just like, this person is an extra and they got to say a thing, rather than an actor who was actually meant to be there and scripted into the scene. And it's okay to remember as well, as a dungeon master that is new to this, chances are you're not doing this for an audience, right? You're doing this for your friends. There's nobody going to be watching or remembering other than you. So if you have forgotten what this person sounded like 3 sessions ago, and these people at the table have all forgotten, it's okay that they're not going to sound the same. You don't need to stress yourself out going, was the shopkeeper a human woman and now I've made them a male dwarf? I don't know. If they don't remember, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It's lost to time.
Yeah.
It just make them whatever they need to be in the moment. And then if your players go, wait, weren't they a human woman the first time we were here? You're like, yeah, that's his wife. Like, it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Rob is about to share the top 2 vocal techniques that you can use to start creating voices now. But in the meantime, you need more orcs. We all need more orcs. I need more orcs. And so Dice Legenz is creating a book called You Need More Orcs. And it has 60 original, brand new types of orcs. Huge variety of difficulties, perfect for any campaign. But there's so much more to it than that. There's sections on how to make orc fortifications, glossary of orc sayings, things around cultural practices and name generators. So head to the link in the video podcast description down below, because you know what? You need more orcs. So then going back to those, what did you call them? Vocal techniques?
Vocal qualities.
Vocal
Is
qualities.
what they were called when I was doing voice acting.
So in terms of those, when people are first doing voices, are there things that you suggest people try, or that you think are easiest on I'm using the word wrong now. On-ramping.
On-ramping, yeah, easiest on-ramp.
What do you think? What's going to make it easiest for people to have a go?
I think some of the easiest stuff to attempt is to practice the laryngeal height. I think that's a big one. So try practice pulling the voice box right down. And you can get a feel for it, like when you swallow. When you swallow, your voice box literally pulls up into your throat because it's closing off the epiglottis, which is making sure the stuff goes down the right windpipe.
Important.
Right pipe, rather. And it's closing off the windpipe, so it's pulling the vocal cords up to do that. And so you can kind of get a feel for what your vocal cords are doing by literally touching your throat as you swallow and then feeling, okay, how do I move that up and down? One of my voice actor used the phrase, I'm a greedy elf. I'm an opera divo. And then Clint Eastwood's, who do you think you are? To like pull it real down. And you just find phrases that work, or like just practice it and practice moving it as you're talking without changing the pitch, but changing the vocal. I think that you can hear while I'm just talking there how much this sounds more like a goblin, right? Yeah. This sounds much more like and if that's the one vocal quality that you change as you're talking to somebody, suddenly they know, oh, now I'm talking to a hobbit or a gnome or a short
something
elf
small.
And then I haven't changed anything other than the vocal quality, the laryngeal height, the height of my larynx. And suddenly now they know that I'm talking to a giant or a Goliath or a dopey ogre or something because I've got this deeper quality. So that's an important one that can make a huge distinction. Pitch, understand, like I get asked sometimes, how do you play female characters so well? You're always such a believable woman. I'm like, because I don't think about them as women. I don't think about them as like different. I think about them as people. They're just people. What crazy revelation? Women are people. and I don't think about them as like, oh, I'm putting on a stereotypical woman voice. I just think about what's the difference in a woman's voice and a man's voice. It's usually on average that the women's voice tend to be a little bit higher. And so I just put a little bit of a higher pitch to my voice, and suddenly I'm a little bit more feminine, and it translates well. And I've told them, hey, you're talking to a woman, and then I put on a slightly more feminine voice, and it sells it. So I think the pitch is important as well for getting across the various different things. So I think those are probably the first 2 that I'd focus on if you're not going to want to focus on accent work.
And speaking of accents, something that I found really liberating. I'm not good with accents. I've never been good with accents. I'm very comfortable changing the vocal quality. Changing from what I want to sound like. I'm very comfortable with that, but I've never been really good with accents. But someone pointed out something to me. You're in a fantasy world.
Yeah, right.
The accent doesn't have to be a believable Scottish accent, because Scotland doesn't exist in this fantasy world. It could be whatever you want it to be. And it's like, yes! It doesn't mean that I'm bad at accents.
That's a terrible French accent. Well, he's not doing a French accent. He's doing a Sylvan accent.
What are you talking about?
That's a perfect Sylvan accent. That's exactly what Sylvans sound like.
Where are you from? Exactly. And I think that's really liberating, right? Like, who cares if I can't tell the difference between an Albanian, a Ukrainian, and a Russian accent?
Right? And also it's important to remember, again, going back to that thing I said before, chances are you're not doing this for an audience. It's not being recorded. You're not making content out of this. You're just probably just telling stories with your friends. As long as your friends are not horrible people who are going to mock you mercilessly for doing a not so great German accent.
Yeah.
And if they are those sorts of people, why are you friends with them? They'll be if they tease you in friendly ways, sure, they're probably going to do that. But like, they should also be perfectly happy with you trying to do a German accent and trying to differentiate between that and a Dutch accent, which I can't do.
Oh, mate. Have you ever, final question, ever done a voice that you've then regretted?
Because it's so hard to keep up with.
For any reason.
There is a voice. So there's a voice of one of the hags in the Adventures of Azarim campaign. There's a coven of hags that were like past, present, future, and the future one was an undead woman called Enderlin, and she only ever spoke on the inhalation.
So I gave her this voice that gave her this really creepy quality.
But it's so hard to say.
Yeah,
it sounds really cool. It's very memorable.
Really hard to say anything that's more than just a single sentence.
Because as we're talking, we're normally used to breathing out, making the sound on the way out with the vocal cords, and then we take these minor sips of breath that allow you to keep going for much longer sentences. And then if you're doing it on the inhalation, you need to make minor expulsions of breath in order to still have the space to keep it. And it's just, I'm not used to doing that, and so I end up completely filling my lungs with air, and then I'm like, I need to breathe it all out again in order to say anything else in her voice. So I didn't regret it per se, but it did make doing scenes with her tough.
Cool. I had an orc, kind of, he's a neutral kind of character, Char, and he had a really gruff voice, and by the end of it, I just couldn't. It actually hurt my voice.
Yeah.
Like, it physically was painful.
That's one of the things that you had to learn in voice acting when I was at drama school, was like how to do those sorts of voices in a protective way. There's a lot of problem comes when doing growl and constriction, because you can really hurt your voice doing it, and so it's kind of like you use the breath like a lubricant, like it's you have to add in some aspirant quality. So I've got a very infamous character who was like a sentient wolf, and he was like an evil character called Wither.
And he talked with this deep growl like this. But as he's talking, I could talk like this for hours without hurting myself, because you can hear I'm using a lot of breath in there.
Cool.
And that's why I have to pause and take a big deep breath after every sentence, because he's using a lot of breath.
A lot of breath is coming through with the growl.
Cool.
And the breath prevents it from grinding those vocal cords together, which is the thing that hurts you.
Wonderful. Hey, this has been really helpful, Rob. Thank you for those ideas, those suggestions, and also examples.
It's funny you should say idea, because it ties in the last sort of hint that I'll give to people about voice work is, if you do want to study accents and you want to get better at doing them, there is a website called IDEA. It stands for the International Dialects of English Archive, and it is exactly as it sounds. They have archived thousands of voices from all over the world. I'm actually on there. I didn't even know that I was until I looked for Yorkshire voices one day and found myself. I was like, that's my voice. They get people to read a particular script, and the script is called Comma Gets a Cure, and it's specifically designed to include all of the vowels that a human voice can say, essentially. All of the vowels in the English language are represented at least once during this script, and so you can listen to accents from Albania and go, oh, how does an Albanian say the word wash, as in wash your face, wash, wash? Do they make an oh sound like in the iron, like osh, or do they make it like wash, wash, or do they make it like wish? And you can listen to it over and over again. It's a fantastic resource for learning accents. The International Dialects of English Archive.
Very handy. Okay, we're gonna finish our episode today with a little game. Well, it's Dungeons & Dragons is cooperative, is collaborative, but the patrons over on our Patreon page have supplied us with a whole bunch of world-building prompts, and they're mean. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a segment called In a World. And what happens is that Rob and I are both going to roll 2d8, and that's going to give us 4 world-building prompts that we then have only a couple of minutes to try to somehow interweave into a brand new D&D setting, and then we finish it off with a quick movie trailer voiceover. All right, you ready, Rob?
Easy peasy, let's go.
Let's do this thing. Okay, hit me. 2d8, what do you got?
I got a 3 and a 7.
Night lasts a month.
Ooh.
Language is color-based.
Ooh, okay.
What the heck?
All right.
Okay, and mine, you ready? Ready? Here, mine? My 2 is... the sun is dying.
Okay. Makes sense for the
And
night lasting so long.
and seasons rotate weekly. What the heck?
Okay. All right. So we're in a situation where the world is late stages of a planetary system where
Totally.
the star is dying. The star is
Yes.
clearly like it's on the stage of a star system where it starts to run out of fuel and it's starting to collapse in on itself, and then the pressure of it collapsing in will make it explode outwards. And so it's collapsing in on itself. The sun is getting super dim, which means that the seasons are all messed up, and it's starting to, maybe the rotation of the planet is slowing, which also happens in late stage planetary systems because things start to get tidally locked to their sun after a while. And so the planet is still rotating but slowly, which means like every time that it rotates around, you're on the dark side for an entire month before it comes back around again, which means that it starts to get real cold. And given that there's 4 seasons and months, let's say 4 weeks, the middle of that month becomes winter. So instead the seasons are now linked with the weeks, in which it takes a week to go through like that transition period into spring, and then a week in summer, and a week and by the time it comes back around, you're basically an entire month in the shadow. Yeah. And then that accounts for 3 of the 4, and then language is color-based as well. What does that even mean?
Well, language is color-based. I'm throwing something really wacky out there. You ready?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, it's connected also to movement of planets and things. Auroras.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, when you're in this dark area, because of the solar radiation of the from the sun, right? It's causing these really strange auroras.
Solar ejections.
And everyone on the planet is awash with solar energy washing through them. Yeah. So as we speak, kind of like glimpses like auroras affect us, and that can affect the nature of magic in the world itself.
I think everybody over time, as creatures have evolved on this planet in this situation where it's getting bombarded with solar energy, everybody has evolved to have synesthesia, where they associate languages with color. Yeah. In a way that some people in the world generally do. Like, I was talking to somebody recently who was like, "What color is Monday?" "It's green, obviously." And I was like, "I have no idea what you mean by that." But like, to some people, they have synesthesia. They associate languages and colors and things. And so I think everybody over time in this planet has evolved to have that, because certain words in this language can be like negative or harmful, and they see those as colors, like negative or nasty colors, dirty browns and stuff maybe, and then like filthy, like putrid greens perhaps. And so they hear those negative words and they stay away from them, which is like it's given them the evolutionary instinct or the evolutionary benefit of being able to like stay around people who are positive and helpful, because those things are slightly more beautiful and colorful perhaps.
So what's the threat? What's the danger? What's the risk? Where's the drama?
I think maybe there's a faction of like dictators or like maybe there's like an evil, maybe there's there'd be nomadic tribes, wouldn't there, who's tried to stay on with the world turning so slowly that they'd constantly be moving west to try and keep up with the planet as much as possible. And eventually the night catches up to them, they turn around and move east again. Yeah, and so maybe there'd be like nomadic tribes that constantly go back and forth over these like hundreds of thousands of mile long tracks, so that they go east to speed up the night essentially. And then they go west
and then they come back into the sunshine.
Hold on to the day. They hold on to the day as much as they possibly can by walking with it. And I think the bad guys would be somebody who's like trying to control that tract of land, and be like, this is the and they're doing so with how does the language tie in? I think it's like using magic that's like vocal based magic.
Sure. And if we use classical like fantasy tropes of darkness being evil, a breeding ground of evil, well, it has this massive, long, dark time where evil can thrive on this solar-based magic.
Also in the dark, where you're not getting inundated with the solar magic, the auroras would be lessened and you'd be able to see it less. You can't, like even people who survive with dark vision, like elves and things, in D&D it says that you can't tell colour. You can only see things in shades of grey.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And so this evil faction that knows that they're saying evil things and putting putrid lies out there, they're relying on people not being able to see the putridness, the putrid colours of their lies. And so you can't tell the colour, you can't see the colours of the words they're saying. You can't see how terrible it is. And so they're building a bigger following on the dark side of the planet. In those months of night, they get away with saying things that aren't true and saying horrible nastiness about other people.
Lies.
And driving propaganda and stuff.
All right. Do we have enough?
I think we've got it. We've got it.
Do you want to be, we each do 2 lines. Do you want to be line 1 and 3 or line 2 and 4?
I'll go line 2 and 4.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, hit me.
The sun is dying as solar energy pulses through the world, converting words into magic. There is a nomadic tribe living on the fringe of light and dark.
Surviving for as long as they can, walking with the daylight as it slowly decreases.
But in the shadows... Sorry.
They can only survive. They can only survive by staying in the light, where they can see each other's words.
But in the darkness of the long night, evil is growing. Fed by lies, a faction of evil threatens their very lives.
Will this nomadic tribe be able to survive in the darkness for long enough to find and thwart this evil? I guess we'll find out.
In coming soon, what's the name of our movie? Aurora Wars.
Aurora Wars. Rural Aurora Wars.
Rural Aurora Wars.
It's really hard to say. The rural jurors of Aurora Wars.
Rob, this has been super fun. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on our podcast today. Really appreciate you being with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Hey, Rob, let our audience know where they can find you and connect with your content.
You can find me all over the internet at Robert Hartley GM. That's HARTLEY. RobertHartleyGM.com for my website, from which you can find my merch store and all of my other links to my socials. Robert Hartley GM on Instagram, on Patreon, on YouTube, on Twitch, on everything.
Wonderful. And if you guys want to support Dice Legenz and the Dungeon Mastering is Easy podcast, head over to our Patreon page. It's one of the best ways that you can support us. Become a patron. You can follow for free, or if you want to support us financially, please do so. There's 3 simple tiers of ways that you can do it. We really appreciate all the support that our patrons have given us over these years. But in the meantime, guys, get a group together. Get your friends, your family together. Pull out some dice. You don't need to know all the rules. It doesn't even matter. Just get DMing, because Dungeon Mastering is easy.
Certainly is.
All right. Thanks, Rob. And guys, we'll catch you next time.
See you next time.